So right now we're going to talk about some specifics about how to do a content analysis. Um, so one thing you want to know is do you need to make a choice about what you're going to analyze, your sample of texts, interactions, or recordings, or whatnot. So I need to make a distinction between what is going to be the unit for analysis, and the unit for analysis is the thing that you want to do a content analysis of. Is it TV shows or is it episodes of a particular TV show? Is it social media posts, like different people's social media posts? Is it conversations, individual conversations? Is it bumper stickers, like they use the example in the book? Now that's the unit that you're going to do for your analysis. Then what you have to decide is what is the unit you're going to use to code. What is it within those texts, media representations, interactions, bumper stickers? What is it that you're looking for? And that might be things like violence, um, type of clothing, um, type of communication, like types of questions people ask, or kinds of nonverbal behaviors people are exhibiting, or something like that. So that's the unit for coding. And then the unit for analysis is the thing that you're going to choose that you're going to analyze. So analysis refers to the thing, TV episodes, conversations, social media posts, and the unit for coding is what it is that you're looking for. So first thing it is what it is you want to study. Do you want to see if there are any differences between the social media posts of men versus women on, say, Instagram or Facebook? Or do you want to know what kinds of humor is used in different kinds of sitcoms? Why do you want to study it? That's important because you have to have a good reason for why you think that might be important. So one thing that people sometimes have done content analysis for is to look at how the portrayal of women's roles over the last 30 years have come about in like television shows, how they've gone from mostly domestic kinds of roles to more and more frequently being in professional roles. Then you've got to decide what it is that you're looking for. So if you're going to look at, say, type of clothing or apparel in social media posts, you need to then decide what it is that you're going to be looking for. I had a group a year or so ago that did casual wear, athletic wear, formal wear, business attire, and then they then categorize the types of clothing people were posting themselves in based upon that category. So the units that we're going to do for analysis, and I tell you what, just don't worry about this unit for analysis and different from unit of observation. Just go with what I told you there earlier about the unit that you're going to analyze. That's the conversation, the TV shows, the bumper stickers, magazine ads, and we're going to call the unit of coding to refer to the categories you have that you're going to code those different things that you're interested in, what the coding scheme is going to be. All right, and that gives you some examples there. And then another choice you have to make is when are you going to do the analysis? I'm sorry, not when are you going to do the analysis, but what is the sampling frame? So if you wanted to do, say, episodes of The Office, I know that's often something that's used in our 305 class when they come up with examples to demonstrate different communication theories is different scenes from The Office. I don't know how long The Office has been on the air, but somebody might say I would like to do a content analysis of the work-related themes that occur over the last 3 years in the episodes of The Office. All right, so here are some here are some common kinds of examples you might be interested in that people have done research projects on in the past. One is if you're looking at a conversation, an interview, or something, you're making a code, making a mark of each time a person asks a question or said something assertive or expressed a concern. So you'll have a conversation and you'll be watching a particular person, and then you'll make note of how often they ask a question or were assertive or expressed a concern. Or you might talk about types of nonverbal behavior that are reciprocated in the conversation. So you might say, here's a smile, and the other person smiled in return. So we have a reciprocity on smile. Here's a person that laughed, and then the other person laughed in response. So there's a reciprocity of a laugh. Um, Types of humor on a selection of YouTube videos. That's something that is fairly, it's not unusual for people to do something like that. The employment status of white, black, and Latino characters in television shows over time. That's one that a number of people have published on in the past. And then you can look at what some examples we've used in class, news stories that are conservatively biased or liberally biased or neutral. And so you look at different news media outlets, and then you kind of code the top stories that they have and whether or not you think that they, based upon your coding scheme, they're biased conservatively, biased liberally, or they're not. They tend to be neutral or representation. Okay, so the criteria for a good content analysis is you need to have a coding scheme that can help you answer your research question, but don't make it too complex. Remember, you're going to be observing certain acts occurring within what it is that you're coding, and you want to make sure that if I'm doing the coding for you, when I see an act, it's clear for me to identify it as an act of interest, like what counts as casual wear, what counts as an act of violence in a cartoon. And the other person that's doing some coding as well, they need to be able to, simple for them too, to be able to identify when those events occur. And need to make sure the categories are mutually exclusive. And what that means is you don't want to put in content analysis, here's something that counts as casual wear, but it can also count as athletic wear. See, that just makes it confusing. So you need to have clear distinctions among your categories so they go into one category or the other. Then you need to have clear interpretive rules for what counts as casual wear or athletic wear or business attire or an act of violence or an act of, say, physical violence versus an act of, say, emotional violence, or if you're talking about bullying or whatever. What are the rules for what counts as falling into that category? So they need to be real clear so that when I'm coding it for you and the other person over here is coding it for you, or you're coding it yourself, we come up with a good deal of consistency of categorizing the same things in the same category. That's the most important thing, is if you've got a clear coding scheme, when I see something, I say, oh yeah, that's this, and it goes into this category, and the other person that's coding sees it the same way. And so to do that, you ought to have at least two people code the data independently. And then once you have the data, then you can represent it because you basically have counts within a category. And so you can represent that as the number of acts that occurred within that category, how often they occurred, the proportion of that category relative to the other categories, or anything like that. All right, and then of course what you have there are numbers, and then you can analyze it as you would analyze responses to scales and things like that on survey responses or on an experiment. So examples of content analysis, there are a couple of them here. The first one is something that's very comparable to what we're doing. They're a little bit different because they are, what they're doing is they make hypotheses, but they're only using descriptive indicators of whether or not they support their hypotheses, not statistical tests, but they're doing a lot of the same kinds of things that you're doing. And then the second example there is one that is very, it's kind of humorous, a couple of kids doing a content analysis together. And I think it's the first one. After you watch the first one, I think it comes up with yet another example of content analysis. It's either the first or the second one that does that. And I looked at that one too, and that one was a pretty good one there as well. So they would be good examples for you to look at and click on in your YouTube as examples of content analysis. All right, so things to know in the book. Now, the book does a good job providing some examples of how to do content analysis. I would focus on that. One of the things they do is they talk a lot about, what is it that's going to be your units for analysis. Are you going to do physical units like objects, like bumper stickers, or types of syntactical units like names, or types of talk, referential units, persons, propositional units. I was thinking about having that be something that I might ask about, but I think that gets makes too many fine distinctions. Just understand that when you do a content analysis, what there's a thing that you want to observe, and that you're coding for, and that usually is going to be something like that's an identifiable thing, like a TV show, a conversation, a magazine ad, a social media post, and things like that.